go. We're live, Tim.
Great. Fantastic. I was waiting for that. Like, it just shocked me. Welcome to everyone. This is the fifth in our social advocacy series for influential employees. Analytica and Tribal host this. We try to do it once a month. We haven't done it for the last few months because of a few things which have been distracting us recently, but we're delighted to be joined by Brian Madden, the lead technologist and evangelist at VMware. And it's so great to have you on the show, Brian. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Sarah. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And I just wanted to say that so we produced an Analytica report recently on influential employees in the tech industry, and Brian came number one in on the Twitter SME list, which was great to see, and also showed up in, I think it was Future of Work, Cloud and Edge Computing, and other tech innovation topics that we talked about. So it's great to be able to have you on the show. It would be wonderful to just give all our viewers a bit of a background of who you are, Brian, and also how you developed your social media influence.
All right, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And what an honor to be recognized, and especially in the topics that are the exact thing that I blog and tweet about. So your system must be working. But my name is Brian Madden, and my little thing down there says Brian. There it is, because I just typed my name. I didn't realize that was the name that goes on the world. So to the world, hello, I'm Brian. I work at VMware. We are a software company. VMware is a giant software company, like 30,000 employees, $10 billion a year. We make software that powers the cloud, essentially. My role within VMware is talking about, so I work in our CTO office, and I talk about and focus on the future and kind of our long-term direction and vision and what customers are doing. And I'm working with customers and with our product management and how we tell the stories and sort of like the future stuff. It's a very cool job. I'm an individual contributor, which means I have no one reporting to me. I just kind of do my thing. I've been in IT for 25 years, since 1995. And I've always been sort of an independent person. My specific area of expertise is called end user computing. So that's all the devices that you touch, right? It's your laptop, your phone, all your devices. How do companies manage that and secure that and everything? And I've been doing that 25 years. And I've always been sort of entrepreneurial and pretty independent. 20 years ago, I wrote my first book. I've written 6 or 7 books over the past couple decades. Started out doing consulting. I created a website called brianmadden.com, which I ran for 15 years. I created a conference called Bri Forum. Just been in this industry a very, very long time, but always as an industry analyst, kind of looking out, from the outside, looking into this industry. And about 3 years ago, I decided to join VMware, put my money where my mouth is. So instead of being an industry analyst, it just kind of is commenting on what these companies should be doing, and maybe join a company and actually do something. So that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years. It's been awesome. I am a tiny fish in a huge 30,000 person pond. And it's great. And now, I live in Seattle. I am in my basement. It's 9:40 a.m. I'm in my basement talking to people all over the world. This is now my job, as it's been for the past 7 months. And I hope for my job for the next 5 years is just sitting in my basement and drinking coffee, talking to people.
What an introduction, Brian. I've seen some of your videos. We have never met before today, but I love your videos. And you just said you've just changed desks because you recently wrote a blog about how you set up your office and sound. I am ashamed, right? I was trying to move my desk before we started talking to you today because I read that blog and I thought, oh, okay, this is awkward. But we can't see the base in front of you now because you said, am I authentic? And then you turn around and give a bit of a
That's right. I had
twang.
So
it's not there.
Right. What Sarah's saying. So this is my first webcast from my new basement location, which my desk was up on my sort of like middle level of my house. And like most of us, my job was working from home, but my job really was living on an airplane. And so for my first few years of VMware, I was traveling, I don't know how many nights, like a lot. Like I was traveling every week, 2-3 days a week, sometimes gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. I was United Global Services, Marriott Ambassador, all the things you can have, Uber Platinum, all the levels you can get on all those travel perks. And so I was working from home, but not really like every day, all day, every day, right? And so as the sort of pandemic came on and we weren't traveling anymore, I just wasn't super happy with the quality of a lot of these Zoom interactions. Obviously, we couldn't buy webcams, in March. There was a run on them, but I thought about how much money we spent to visit a customer. I go for a 45-minute meeting. You spend $800 on a flight, a couple $100 on a hotel. I mean, you spend $1,500 to do the 45-minute customer meeting and burn 2 days.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, how much video equipment can we buy for a house? Like, buy a good camera, buy some good lights, buy a decent microphone, buy the in-ear headphones that you can't see. Like, buy these things. And for $1,500 or whatever, you can have a pretty dope setup. Like, look at these lights; they change colors. There's $30 on Amazon, right? So when I'm having a customer meeting, I'll set these to the colors of just little stuff like that, right? So my point is,
have you set them to our brand colors, Brian?
Let's do that
right
just
now. VMware brand colors.
This is the default, which is the VMware brand colors. And what are your brand colors?
Well, Analytica, I'm orange. Analytica's blue. So
orange and blue, please.
We'll do
yes,
one
if you
orange.
can. This is superb. I don't think we've ever spoken to anyone who could switch their custom lights to match
blue.
this session.
There's the blue one.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, now these things are linked together. If I can get the other, there we go. Turn that one on, turn that one off. And now orange is the other one possibly. And we can
look at that.
Tune the orangeness of it.
I'm impressed, Brian.
I turned off.
And the reason I've mentioned this is because I just think that you have paid so much attention to this whole working at home environment. And this is what's made me twig a little bit. I mean, I did a little bit. I have got a microphone. I've got my lights and stuff, but not to the extent that you have. But the whole digital influence thing does happen. You have to have a decent setup. We are now talking to customers in this way. And influence starts from first impressions, right? So it just fascinated me. And I thought, that would be useful for other people to understand how you've done it. And now you've got switching lights. I'm afraid I'm on Amazon after this. And
and I've got, there's a lot of stuff you can do, right? So I upgraded and upgraded, right? I bought teleprompter glass. So I'm looking at you right through my camera lens. So my eyes aren't down like this. I'm not looking over here as I'm talking over there. I don't have it plugged in right now, but I have my iPad plugged in so I can do virtual light boarding. So like using your pen on the iPad, and I can draw lines directly onto the screen in front of me so we can whiteboard out together. We can stream these meetings via Twitch. So when you have customer meetings, now for customer meeting, record it, right?
Yeah.
I would fly around. And when I was a consultant before joining VMware, I was charging $1,000 an hour for consulting.
Yeah.
And that was my phone rate. If I go on site, there's $20,000. And now working for a vendor, there's no charging for that. I'm just part of the vendor machine. But when a customer gets me for an hour, maybe I'm talking about the VMware products for a while, but we're just kind of rapping about the industry and what's happening and what are your thoughts and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, push record on that, right?
Yeah.
And so now that every meeting is virtual, whether it's Zoom or Teams or whatever, we have the meeting like this, push record, we'll do the whiteboard in here, we'll capture everything, and then you can watch it later, you can share it. The whole meeting virtually, there's a lot to it that I think we as an industry haven't really figured out yet. Because what we're trying to do with these meetings and these interactions is to emulate physical environment, emulate the old environment, because that's all we know.
Yeah.
And the analogy I use with people, it's like when television first came out. They didn't know what to do. They literally pointed TV cameras at the radio actors, like reading radio dramas, like the guy with the sheets making thunder and not like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And after a while, it's like, this is a whole different medium. It's more like like teleplays. And so I think that's the same thing with Zoom and all it's working from home. We are just now figuring out how to make that work.
Yeah.
And I knew that. Yeah. And for me, it's going back. Everything that I've done in my entire life has been about authenticity.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, when you're meeting with a customer, when you're on a podcast, on a show, that has to be the place that you want to be more than anywhere else in the world at that moment.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to be there, don't be there.
Don't do it.
I'm really glad that you feel like that now, Brian.
I noticed Anita said, hi, Anita. I don't know if you're still watching. We're getting comments, Brian. I don't know if you've seen these in LinkedIn Live. Which lights have you got, Anita? Have you got the flashy ones that Brian's got or the ring one that I've got? Because I'm upgrading soon. So next time you see me, I'm going to have disco lights.
The lights are fantastic. I mean, these lights are $100 each. You Google 3-point lighting. I got one there. I got one there. I got one in back. You can adjust the color temperature. You can match it to your camera. Then those little ones in back, like I said, at Amazon, like $30 each. There's an iPhone app to control them. The technology we need to be able to deliver a good experience is very achievable. And so for me, that means that, I micromanage and think about everything, like just the presentation, how it's going to, I put myself in the shoes of the people I'm talking to. What would they want to listen to? What experience would they like? They don't want someone who's kind of fuzzy. The background is like Zoom fake background is like making their ear appear and disappear, or they're like sitting down like this, or the microphone's back there and they're kind of like this. And you're like, I'm watching an hour. Come on, man.
Oh, Anita has got color changing lights. Now I really feel like I'm missing out. That is FOMO big time. So I do think maybe brands can help enable employees to do this. Really, what is a good office setup? I'm sure I've spoken to somebody at one of the major software brands actually, and they've been having training on this, so they get that kind of encouragement and stuff. Anyway, I shall stop talking. And Tim, I'm sure you've got a question.
I actually have sorry, Brian. I would be fascinated to talk about lights. My lights are really bad, so I probably need all the all the advice in the world. What I want to ask you was 2016. You said I read a blog that you wrote about when you joined VMware, that you went on a beach and you took a big time out from social media. So obviously you joined VMware and you then came back into social media. Can you talk a bit about how you felt that your kind of social media influence grow, and like when that really happened, and talk a bit about that journey? Because I imagine on the beach you were trying to avoid mobiles, I think, and you didn't have your cell phone at that time.
Right. Yeah. So, I think we have to back up a little bit and understand my relationship with social media. I do not use any social media in my personal life. So I don't have Facebook. I don't even know what the other ones are. Snap, Instagram, chat, TikTok. I don't have any of this stuff.
Snap.
I don't have any of this stuff. I'm 43 years old. I kind of like, I don't have kids. I mean, I don't need it. I poked around a little bit. When it first came out, I basically found all the people from high school that I didn't like then, and I didn't care what they had for lunch. This is 10 years ago, right? It's like, it's just never been a thing in my life.
You weren't on Friends Reunited then, I take it, when that was the thing. Was that a thing over there? Friends Reunited.
I think it's something that
the wrong person.
It's something that it's more in the UK, I think, Sarah. But it was. I think we're showing our age if we know what that is.
Sorry. Okay. I'll forget that. Forget that question.
The thing is, though. So for me, I use Twitter, and LinkedIn has become sort of a social media thing now, like with the news feeds and that sort of thing. I use Twitter and LinkedIn. I use them both for work. Twitter I've been using since 2007. So in fact, I even wrote some blogs back when I was doing brianmadden.com about why I use Twitter and why you too should use Twitter for work. Like, it was really this is 13 years ago with Twitter. People didn't understand then. They're like, why do I care what hamburger flavor you had today? Yeah. I'm like, well, you don't have, like, there's more to that than Twitter. And people are like, that's all I see on Twitter. I'm like, well, you are following the wrong people. First of all, I follow 31 people on Twitter. I don't want any algorithms deciding because if you follow 1,000 people, you're not reading 1,000 updates. The Twitter gods are deciding what you read. I don't want them to decide. There's 31 people. If they start tweeting too much about not work, it's an unfollow. Like, I use Twitter to actually learn about and engage with this industry. And for me, so Twitter and LinkedIn I've always used for work. When I took that break, I didn't go to college. So I started working in high school. I kind of worked straight through high school, kind of working forever. So until a few years ago, I didn't have more than like 2 weeks of not working since I was 14 or whatever, whenever I first started scooping ice cream. And so I took almost 2 years off. And I got rid of my smartphone. I was a flip phone only. I say got rid of my smartphone. I got rid of my BlackBerry. I went back to flip phone, paper maps, kind of drove around the country, spent some time in Florida. It was awesome. But it wasn't hard for me to disconnect because I had disconnected from all of work, right, all of the industry. So Twitter and LinkedIn also, like, very easy to just, drop that. So
had you built up your audiences before 2016, or was it mainly when you came to VMware that you really built the scale of your audience?
No, and so it had been that way before. In fact, I think I didn't lose. I mean, on Twitter, I'm like 20,000 followers. and I've been 20,000, I think, for kind of a while. I don't really think I grew any since I joined VMware, or I don't think I lost any since I joined VMware. That was mostly done from BrianMadden.com over the 10 years or so of that. The thing is, I don't, for me, like I said, when I'm giving a speech, when I'm giving a talk, when I'm doing a podcast, I want to produce the content that people want to see. And the same is true of Twitter. So for Twitter, I don't have any kind of like posting schedule. I'm not doing, like, we must have 2 tweets a day, must have a good one, must have 3 retweets. I'm doing none of that. I tweet when I've got something that's worth tweeting. Sometimes I'll go 2 months without anything. Sometimes it'll be 4 a day. I feel like for me, that's what works. And if that got me an audience, if I would have a bigger audience if I tweeted more consistently, maybe. But I don't want to pollute the Twitter sphere with like more chum. I just feel like it's I tweet when I tweet, when it's something worth saying. And I use Twitter and LinkedIn almost the same. So almost everything I tweet, I also put onto LinkedIn, and vice versa. But it's very sporadic. It's when I have something worth sharing, versus like must do this every single day. Now, that said, Twitter's not my day job. I get a paycheck from VMware. I do my thing at VMware. I'm not like a media company or like a professional influencer or something like that. Back when I was doing BrianMadden.com, we had an editorial calendar. We knew what articles were dropping on which days. We knew Tuesdays were better than Mondays. We knew we had it at noon. Like, we knew everything, and it was dialed in. And the tweets, all that stuff was sort of dialed into that. So I'm not trying to like knock the idea of like planning and being strategic about that kind of stuff. It's just that in my position right now, my actual day job is being this technologist at VMware. Twitter is just like a side thing that I do. So I don't have to pay attention as much to it.
But you clearly get a lot of value through engaging with your network. I saw a question the other day, I think it was on your feed actually, about that, Tim, about internal influencers and evangelists, and you should pay them extra or whatever. And what I'm hearing from you is that you're passionate about just engaging with the community. It's how you stay in touch with people. It's not, you don't do it for any other reason. You don't do it for targets or KPIs, or it's because it helps you do your role better and you enjoy it. Is that the motivator? I'm trying to get underneath why you do what you do.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like, I got really mad at Twitter a few months ago when Twitter kind of got political in this country, and there's a lot of garbage there. And what I really didn't like about Twitter was I couldn't stay off the news. Like, if I went to Twitter, it would show in the sidebar, here's trending topics, and it's all these things that get you riled up, right? Which is the whole like social media problem, is they get you like riled up. And so I couldn't do Twitter without seeing the stuff. I finally switched my location to Oman in Twitter, so that all the trending tweets are in like Arabic, which I don't read. So that way I don't see it. Although today it's like squiggles, like trending now, all these Arabic squiggles, and then it says like Nevada. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
It actually creates a bit of a headache for companies like us, Brian, because when we analyze people's locations to be able to try and sort of help brands, and some people say screw you in the location, or put like a different country, and then we have to invest a lot more money to actually get the precise location. But anyway, that's an aside. I know, exactly.
Yeah, your life is so tough. Yeah,
I know.
We've had a question. I don't even know if Johan's still on, but Johan said, does Brian switch his color temperature during the day? So do you switch it like depending on your mood as daylight changes during the day?
So one of the reasons I moved to where I am right now is, and I don't have my whole full setup right here, so I can't show you the other view. My house is a square, like it looks like a castle, like a cube, and there's a lot of glass. And so when I was upstairs, it was all, I didn't have good light control. And so these lights I use, you can adjust the color temperature between like 2700 and 55 or whatever. So I'd actually have to move it to more daylight during the day, and then adjust on the camera as well to keep everything sort of in check. One of the reasons I moved to the basement, and this is what I was saying earlier, in March, when pandemic began, I had my desk sort of in the middle of my house, and it's the desk I worked occasionally. There's a screen and my little, Logitech webcam and some speakers. It wasn't that big of a deal. But as I got to do more and more at home, and I put in lights, and I put in microphone, I put in this camera, and all these different things, all of a sudden the desk in my living space turned into this huge gorilla mess of wires, and like I couldn't get away from work. And it's like right there in the middle level of my house by my TV. Like every time I saw it, I'm like, ugh. So that's part of what got me to move this down to the basement. The second reason I moved it to the basement is I've got more pristine light control. So I can close all the blinds here and actually darken this room completely, and then use just the artificial lights. And I can set the color temperature on the artificial lights and the camera to all match and never have to change it. So a lot of my life previously was like moving shades and color temperature adjustments and everything to get my skin not to look green. But now,
I'm prepared for this. I have got some work to do. Yeah.
Yeah, blackout shades.
Your question, Johan. I do have to ask. I know we're running up on time, but I do have to ask, Brian. Your videos are pretty different, and I will mention the carpet snow angels and the press that you did, which is like, I love your videos. You think totally different about. There's no way I would do that, by the way. But when you're talking about webinars or speaking opportunities or something like that, where do you get your crazy ideas from? But that's how you stop people, right? On the dwell time on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of funny too. So first of all, like, yeah, everyone wants promotional videos. Like, oh, promote your webcast. You can't be like, hi, my name's Brian Madden. We're gonna have a webcast of VMware this Friday. We want, like, really? It's just a picture of a dude, like a headshot of a dude talking about technology. Like,
yeah.
So I need to look around the house. I live in Washington. Marijuana is legal here. So, just like smoke up and write down a bunch of ideas as they come in. And then the next morning, you're like, carpet snow angels. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
It stopped my news feed. I'll tell you, I was scrolling through and I was like, I've got to watch this. Anybody who's watching who's think, what are we talking about? You just need to go onto Brian Madden's LinkedIn profile and have a look down, or I think it's on your Twitter profile. Really cool. I just think, I
mean, someone wanted something last week, and it's Halloween decorations. I need a promo for something we're doing. I'm looking around, and it's like, there's a skull for the decorations. It's like,
yes, I saw that one.
The skull. I'm like, oh, it's like Hamlet, to be or not to be. So like, let's do this. And whatever's crazy. I've got to do one for tomorrow. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I walk around the house. Because I'm locked in the house like everybody is right now, right? So it's like, kind of, what can I do immediately? It's just selfie cam on the iPhone. It's not production value, whatever. Like, just look around and what can you do? And like, I don't know. Something with masks, right? You just sort of pull that thread. But this is the thing. At the end of the day, people are going to watch things that are authentic and interesting. If you share what you actually think is interesting, then you're gonna get that influence. If it's something where it's like, hey, this, act now and enter a chance to win a contest to win a Apple TV. It's like, really, you're gonna put me in a contest with 10,000 other people to win something worth $200? And like, why am I? Or this vendor, big news, we signed a new partner in Norway, and like, please retweet. Like, who the F cares? So it's got to be stuff that for companies who are reaching out to their influencers, they need news that is actually interesting. I feel like there's so many people in this sort of like social media marketing world who went to social media college and like have these social media playbooks. Like, well, you're supposed to have these things and this thing, and here's this retweets and this, and it's just make stuff interesting, and people will pay attention. Make your videos interesting, make your content interesting. People like interesting.
So Brian, what I love about you is that you don't have a set strategy. A lot of people that Sarah and I have interviewed and chatted to on LinkedIn Live about this, they have a strategy, they post at a certain time, and you're just, when you've got passion and energy, you just go for it at that particular time, and it's obviously, really shows up in your content. Have you seen the impact that your social media content has had on other VMware employees? Has it encouraged people to kind of replicate what you do, or have you got any kind of feeling of the impact that you've got internally within other employees?
It's hard to say. I mean, VMware is a very, very large company, so we have entire departments dedicated to all. Like I said, all these people who went to social media college, like we have those people, and VMware does there's a lot of stuff to support. There's daily emails on here are. Like trends, here are highlights, here's blogs, here's tweets that people are doing, and you can subscribe to this news list internally, which I do, and here's 10 sort of suggested topics of things to tweet about or post about or sort of whatever. I don't know you know, my job within VMware is not social media. So I'm not in the social media department. I'm not in the marketing department. I'm just kind of like some dude doing my thing. So I don't really, I see a lot of like, VMware has, you know, like a lot of big companies, there's like these approved images. And, you know, you go to like our marketing portals internally and like, here's the approved images. And it's always like a perfect blend of humans, like, you know, like multi-age, multi-gender, multi-race, multi-clothes. They all have like Apple devices with like no Apple logos on them somehow. And, you know, there's a picture of, you know, like, here's an important post about working from home. And there's like a picture of a woman like sitting on her bed with a laptop. Like, what value does that image add to that? There's this great thing called the Taft test. Google that if you haven't read about it. It says if with the image in social media or the web, if you can replace it with an image of William Howard Taft, is that the guy's name? Like 8th president or whatever, this old president. If you can replace the image with the image of President Taft and it doesn't change the meaning of the story, then you probably don't need that image in the story. So my point is a lot of these recommended tweets are still these like very generic images, and that stuff never works. It never works. Like you see these things, there's a picture of me with a skull, like just like this, and you'll get whatever it is. Like you can see tweets, engagements if you click through. I don't really click into that kind of stuff, but you see, oh, you got 40 likes or whatever. And then like the corporate one is like some generic person working at a coffee shop that gets 2. I mean, it's I would say no, as a matter of fact. Like my style has not influenced a lot of my coworkers, at least not the VMware sort of like machinery. There's other colleagues I have who will, you know, tweet things in their own way. My whole thing is I don't do anything personal though. Like there's no football scores, there's no, you know, political stuff on weekends. There's no like it's not used like that. So I think the people that have personality are using it for more than just their work stuff.
Well, I think you have inspired people because on the comments I can see Christian Lowry says Brian inspires all of us to be more creative. So maybe you didn't realize it, Brian, but you do. And Brian has made a huge impact internally. We share his videos with other stakeholders who want to create promo videos as an example of best practice. So some of your colleagues are shouting out to you, Brian, to say you are making a difference.
Fantastic.
So you didn't even know that, you see? And I think,
Christian Lowry guy is great. So, okay, this is perfect. So that's a guy at VMware. I don't really know him, but I just know that when I submitted some of these videos, they're like, oh, this is actually interesting because it wasn't just a person talking. Can you do some more? And I'm like, sure. So the reward about doing these things that are actually kind of interesting is you get to do more and more. And that's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. They're paying attention. I feel like the thing is, you got to not be afraid to be out there. You got to get out there. Like, are you an idiot for like yelling at a skull in your backyard while you're filming it? You know, for hanging upside down in your rings, to, like for all these things. Yes, absolutely. You look like an idiot. That's why people click on it. So I
how many takes did you do? And do you have close next door neighbors that were looking over the fence?
The skull one was actually at a friend of mine, and that one was the second. Was only 2 takes, and ironically, I had worked so hard to like memorize the lines or whatever. You know, to be or not to be, that whole thing.
Very good.
And then I got through all that, and then I messed up at the end. I forgot what event I was promoting. I was like, and that's like next week at.
We'll get you on the stage, Brian. We got the Globe Theatre over here. I'm sure you'll be fine at that. So
fantastic. Let's burn it down.
Do you know there is one thing you do say though, which I think is the clear message for me out of all of this is authentic, and it comes up, doesn't it? It's like a buzzword on every one of these, Tim, that we do. Companies are full of people like you, Brian, but they just don't feel like they've got permission to do it. So I just think you're quite inspiring for others, especially in the tech space where we are very used to like the typical stock pictures and, you know, boring content and, you know, but people like you brighten it up, and we've got so many great employees that sit behind the logo. Just feel like we just need to release them. And I find you really inspiring for that. So
yeah, thank you. It keeps it fun. I mean, gosh, our jobs are IT. How boring is that? Like computers. I mean, I dedicate my life to it. Like I spent all weekend making cables for my new little data center down here. Like I'm hardcore into it, right? But like, holy moly, it's IT. The thing is, And this is what I think organizations have to figure out, especially like larger companies who have influencers who work at the companies as employees. You know, in my sense, I'm like very secure in my career. I mean, we have 30,000 employees. My email is brian@vmware.com. Like, I'm good. I came in at a high level of the company. I'm a household brand in our industry. Like, no one's telling Brian what to do. So like, I don't use my own power. I don't use the VMware corporate PowerPoint templates. I don't use the corporate, Twitter templates for retweets and like hero images on posts and all that kind of stuff. So my stuff is interesting because our company says, here's our social media toolkit. And I'm like, I'm good, y'all. Thanks. I'm going to do my own thing. So that makes it interesting. But if I were like a more junior level, if I was 24 and in my first job and like kind of like bright-eyed and I want to change the world and trying to move up the corporate ladder and everything, I don't know if I would be as bold as I am because I have no fear of getting fired. Like like I'm not like, no one's going to tell me like, because I had 20,000 Twitters before I joined VMware. They hired me because I was like this crazy dude who was out in the world. So like I can have a more permission to be crazy. So I think that's the thing, is that people have to sort of recognize that, if you're going to be out there doing goofy stuff, some things might be kind of goofy. And a lot of companies want to be, especially now when people are parsing every language and every word and every tweet and everything, and they're going back to what you wrote 3 years ago. I mean, it's a very tough environment for people to feel both the permission themselves to let themselves go, but also for companies. I mean, I can get it. If I was sort of some marketing or legal person at a large company and it's like, hey, we want to let all of our Twitter users be crazy. What do you think? And I'd be like, here's a corporate template. Can we just use that, please? Like, I get it. So it's people have to be like bold, but the companies have to give them permission to be crazy. And VMware so far has been great for me. I think that I think that's one of the great things about VMware, and I think that's something that more companies need to do for sure.
Brilliant. Oh, and there you go. Give him a follow. Got your Twitter account on there. So brilliant. Thank you, Elena. You got your fan club on as well then, Brian. It's brilliant. No, we love watching this, and I had a whole list of things I wanted to talk to you about, but I think we're running up against the time now. So
I'm good till 10:30. So I got 22 more minutes. We can cut it off. I don't know how your show goes. I only watched it for the first time, a couple weeks ago. So I'm good, but I'm fine to wrap this.
I think we probably got a couple more minutes because I know that Sarah, you've got to shoot in a bit. But I was just interested, Brian, that with your audience that you had built before you joined VMware and sort of stayed the same, do you have any idea, how that's sort of broken down? I mean, I guess the answer is because you just love to post content, and when you got passion and energy, you're not really sort of thinking about that kind of stuff. But do you get the engagement from a certain group of people, or do you know that you have more followers in certain countries, or is it just organic and it just goes out there into the networks and you just carry on?
Yeah, I've never once looked at that. No idea. I feel like occasionally I reach out to Twitter. Like a lot of my tweets are kind of one directional. Like, hey, I'm going on this show, I'm doing this webcast, or where I'm asking for something like, hey, we're just a call for papers, deadlines next week, like these kinds of things. Occasionally I'll ask like, hey, Twitter, we're thinking about this, A or B, what do you think? And kind of get some conversations in there. That is very, very rare for me. And so, like I said, for me, it truly is just, I use it more as a broadcast medium. Quite frankly. And it's tough. I mean, I like that Twitter has like the conversation abilities now, and you can like actually thread multiple things together. But now you're kind of getting into, well, if it's not 280 characters, if I need 17 tweets, like, why is it on Twitter, not Medium? But then you got the audience, and it gets sort of complex in there. And if I have like longer things to write about or to really share, I'll blog them and then just link to those from LinkedIn and Twitter, because I want to have like one place for the conversation. I don't want to have like a conversation, like have a conversation on Twitter and the other have the conversation on LinkedIn and the other have the conversation on a blog, and then everything's kind of scattered and you don't really know kind of what's where. But from my standpoint, I mean, I've done zero analysis. I feel like I know a lot of people. Our industry, so I work in, it's called end user computing. It's like a small subset of the overall IT industry, and so it's a smaller world. And so I've been doing this, like I said, 25 years. A lot of these people who I engage with in Twitter, I've known for 10 or 20 years. And so there is, so there's those people who I know who are like other like folks in this industry who've been doing it a long time, but that's probably 100 or 200. The other 20,000, couldn't even guess who they are.
And I don't have to go, Tim, because now we're in lockdown in the UK. So I've got. I'm in no rush.
Sorry.
I'm going
Apologies,
nowhere.
Sarah. I thought you were.
No, I'm not rushing out the door. Not anymore. Not now we're in lockdown. But I can hear lots of fireworks. So I'm hoping you can hear me all right, because it is Bonfire Night over here, Brian, which means there's a lot of fireworks going off around us. So it's not something you have over there, but we do have over here. So it's kind of, I did have
Bonfire Night. So y'all are hardcore.
Oh, Bonfire Night. Yeah, it's Guy Fawkes Night. Yeah, this is
cool.
Fireworks Night. I don't know what's the official title, Tim. I can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, it's the night of the year we set Guy Fawkes. That's it. Look it up. It's a British tradition to do that. I was going to ask you, actually, you mentioned blogs there, because I read your eulogy blog when they shut down BrianMadden.com. I was almost weeping at the end of that, Brian. I could hear your emotion coming across. But then I thought, you put a lot of content on that. How on earth do you find time to do like crazy videos, write your own content? Because I know I can see you write your own content, because speaking to you, hearing you, I can read it as well.
Yeah.
Do you not even think about that? How do you manage your time to be everywhere and writing and, you know?
Well, it's kind of funny, because this also sort of goes to the earlier question about people like social media influencers who work at vendors. You know, should they get paid more for doing social media? I'm like, well, no. I mean, it's part of their job. Like, they get paid for their job. So I feel like if they're working there 40 hours a week or whatever is full time, they shouldn't do this like on top of that. But you know, like, make it part of your job. If that's part of your job, that's part of your job. You know, so BrianMadden.com was a website that I started in the early 2000s. It was a blog about end user computing and all sort of stuff. And I blogged on there and started to build an audience. And then I sold that. Well, we grew to be like a 5-person company, sold that to TechTarget, who's an IT media company. So BrianMadden.com was still a thing. It's just owned by TechTarget. I worked there for 8 years. Then I left TechTarget. And once I left TechTarget, after a couple of years, my other 2 friends who had joined us and were working on the blog with me, they also ended up leaving TechTarget. Actually, both joined me here at VMware. So BrianMadden.com is a TechTarget property and didn't really have any more like the Brian Madden people at it. So they shut it down. And it's too bad. Like, they shut it down, like, site is gone. So 2,500 articles, you know, like 15 years of history. And that's what that eulogy was about, which is off my LinkedIn page. I don't blame them for that per se. I almost blame Google more for this, because Google punishes sites and domains based on how much traffic they get and how active the pages are. And like, for BrianMadden.com to be like an archive snapshot that has, you know, of those 2,500 articles, probably most of them are only getting 1 visitor a month, because they're like news stories from 10 years ago. And that punishes the whole TechTarget network. Like, I get why TechTarget had to do that. I would have liked some heads up. I mean, I didn't work there anymore. It's fine. And I told it to them, like, it's all fair. But the thing is, when I was at BrianMadden.com and when I was at TechTarget, like, blogging was part of my job. And so even before we sold the company to TechTarget, you know, I was giving speeches, I was doing consulting, we had Bryform, I was writing books, I was doing blogs, I was doing the podcasts. It was just part of my job. So I found time. That's like saying, like, right now, how do you find time for meetings? It's like, well, because they paid me a salary and I just like show up and go to you
bit ahead of your time though, creating the content like that in that state, you know, at that time. You know, these days you're just adapting to like more video, more conference, more that kind of thing. So it's quite, you know, you're mixing it up a little bit with your podcast, your webinars, and different kind of content types. So not just the written content, which is
and I think that's important also, because people learn very differently. For me, I don't like video. I'm not a video guy. I want to read instructions. I don't go to YouTube. Like, I watch old video game histories on YouTube, like 8-bit guy and stuff like that. I don't watch YouTube like how to fix your drain. I read the article text about how to fix a drain. Other people have more harder time processing with reading and stuff. My brother-in-law, he's a video guy only. Like, he has to watch a video to do things. If you give him a list of like 45 pages of instructions, he's like, is there someone on YouTube to show me this? I can't deal with it. So if you want to reach everyone, it's important that you you arrive on the mediums that they want you, that they're receptive to, right? So if you have a message to get out to the world, it's got to be, here's some tweets, here's some short form, here's a video, here's a longer video, here's a how-to, here's a webcast, here's a book, here's a blog, here's a, whatever. That doesn't have to be one person doing all those things, by the way. It's just that, like, if here is a story I want to reach X audience, it's not so much about just to put a blog. It may be there's a blog and a podcast that's audio only and a video that's audio and video. And here's a tweet and here's a LinkedIn. They have to be there.
I'm having a BBC moment here. I've got my youngest one. Oh.
Hi.
She's the star of the show
Seattle.
coming in.
It's orange and blue here.
Oh, gee. I am so sorry.
So
let me just remove said child. So
Brian, what I love about the SirBrianMadden.com era, I suppose, was that you're a natural content creator, and when Sarah and I try and help organizations en masse try to encourage employees to work on their personal brand and to really sort of fuel their passion into their profiles, then some of them are not natural content creators, but you had so much of a rhythm beforehand that now you've got the platform and you can just be who you want to be when you want to be that. Whereas I suppose other people are under pressure to, are they fearful of creating the right content? Do they have the audience? And, it's really tough for them to be able to get started. So I think it's great that you can just create what you want to on the right channel. And you obviously love to read a lot, and that just fuels your content creation. So I think it's just an observation that obviously really works for you. And I hope that it obviously does inspire a lot of people to try and follow suit.
Yeah.
There's a couple of really great points in there. I mean, first of all, I've been doing this a long time. I wrote 6 books, 2,500 articles, countless webcasts, and these kinds of things. It's an acquired skill. I was not a good writer when I wrote my first. It's like everything. Like, how do you write a book? Open a copy of Word, file, new, blank. Okay. Now, it was a dark and stormy night. The first 3 chapters I wrote in my first book I ended up throwing away because they were garbage. By the time I got to the end of the book and went back, I'm like, I was a better writer even in the 9 months I worked on that first book 20 years ago. So all these are acquired skills. You can learn these skills. And it got to the point where then you can just crank it out. And one of the things with all the social media and online stuff is, like, blogs, you can edit them later. I talk about how, like, I try to be very particular about all the details and paying attention to detail. But you also have to know, like, where to put the effort. When I was doing blogs, I was writing it, maybe just write and publish. Maybe if it's a random thing that it takes a lot of work, I'd give it one more read through and then publish. You don't need 15 people to approve this. It's a blog. It's not the New York Times, and like, it's a blog. And push print, publish. If there's a typo, you go to the website, edit, change typo, save. That's it. You don't need all these people to look at that. So that's one of the things that I think large organizations, like, oh, you have to submit the blog and it has to go through here, and here's the standards, and legal has to look, and it's, the organizations, you have to trust your employees. There's a balance there, and every organization is going to have their own, like, way to how much power we give to the individual employees. The other thing too is going back to this authenticity thing. I've always said I create the content that I want to consume. I wrote a book. My first book was kind of unlike other IT books at the time in the terms of voice. I broke the rules, like I ended sentences and prepositions and did all these things, like, dangling participles and all these things that thou shalt not speak this way. This is not proper English. I'm like, I'm an IT dude. This is how we talk. This is how I write. And for the conference, I created the conference I wanted to attend. And the thing is, so that was very valuable to me. And that's what, like, has my voice, because I read about, like, a lot of people that blog who are, like, more corporate bloggers, whatever. And you're reading these things and you're like, did anyone read this out loud? Who talks this way?
Yeah.
Like, this is like a press release with an author sticker on the top. Like, this is not how humans talk. I tell people, read it out loud. If you're just getting into it, read it out loud. And to some people, like, when I get content from, I'll highlight a line. I'm like, send me a voice recording of you reading the sentence out loud, because I don't know what the F you're trying to do right here. Like, it's things like that. But, like, it's it's a challenge because these larger organizations who are more like conservative and more, like formal about things are like, well, we are, this is our brand and this is how we speak and this is how, and I think that the authenticity has to be like, you can't fake authenticity.
No.
Like you just have to be like, just be out there and put the content out in the way that you talk and your actual opinions. That's the other thing too, is like, people are so afraid to have opinions now. Because of like all this sort of micro analysis and parsing of every word and all that sort of thing. And that's, that makes a lot of like corporate content like very bland.
Yeah.
And so if you're just sharing stuff without adding a perspective, like you have to have a point of view. Like, why do you exist? Why do I follow you? And if all you are is just like a retweeting the corporate, 10% off, get your orders in by Thursday, like who cares? So there's got to be and the value also you provide can't just be like, hey, this is cool, because like, who are you? Like, why am I following that person to say something is cool? Like, I can say something is cool because I've been doing it 25 years, and people know that when I say something is cool, it's cool because they know me based on my track record. But if I'm just starting out, you can't just like retweet, hey, check it out. I'm like, why? What's your perspective in it? Like, what are you adding to this conversation? And if you're not adding anything to the conversation, why am I following you?
It's a bit about, but what everything you've said there, I think, is just absolutely sums up what this series is about, because I think companies can learn from this, because too often it's marketing that controls it. And I can say that because I'm a marketer, right? Mm-hmm. We control it, we make it bland because we're just so paranoid and we don't want to make it all controlled. But they are sat on such amazing resources internally who all have unique individual voices that need help building their credibility around content. Find their own angle, find their own voice. And you don't have to be controversial, but you should have an opinion, and I kind of think, if marketing could just see the absolute opportunity that's lying right in front of them, and just enable employees to find that voice. And I'm big with you on that. Just write the blog and publish it, right? And then just change it after, because you can spend so much time procrastinating about, oh, does that sound right? Is that the right tense? Is that just publish it. I'm not a writer. And I do remember starting to write my very first blog, which was a diary when I moved to Norway for 5 years. And I was like, oh, shall I? And in the end, I just thought, well, no one's reading it. I'll just keep publishing it. And then in the end, last check I had like 5,000 followers. And it was like, how did that happen? I was just writing it because I quite enjoyed it. And I think if employees if employees can think, why do you do this, and just enjoy it and get on with it and pretend nobody's really reading it, because they probably won't to start with. It takes a while to build followers. Just crack on with it, stop trying to be someone you're not. And that is something I take from this. So thank you, Brian, for reminding me of that.
Content, be interesting. People will find you. Be interesting.
Have your kids gate crash LinkedIn Live, be interesting.
When everyone, you can tell the blog posts that I write, like I try to make everything I do interesting and stuff that's interesting to other people. But sometimes people from, the corporate world are like, hey, we need a blog on this. Brian, you're the right guy to write this one. I'm like, yep, I got it. But other times it's things that I really want to get out there. And I try to make everything I do interesting, but you can really tell if it's like a pet issue of Brian where it's like, oh, it's on. It's on. Stand back. 5,000 words in 4 hours. Versus like, oh yes, here is why VMware Zero Trust solutions ought to be the way that you go for the future. So it's the content that you create because you're fired up. That's that. I mean, these algorithms that sort all of the social media trends, right? And we talk about how the algorithm in sorting to be the most people get the most engaged is good for these platforms commercially. It's not necessarily good for our own like mental health. But the underlying reality there is still true, is that like when people get fired up, and it could be about, like some political thing, or it could be, about this software platform in this cloud versus that software platform in that cloud, people can be fired up. I've written some pretty fired up topics about the cloud. If you get fired up and have that passion, it's going to be in the text that you put onto the screen, and people will feel that, and people will find it. It's just be authentic, put your opinion out there. And, if you say something that's like super, super crazy, you can always delete it. And I've deleted tweets. I have, even now at VMware, I have had like 1 or 2 tweets where like I wrote something and, some colleagues are like, really, dude? and I'll look at the next day and I'm like, yeah, that was dumb. Delete. I don't even care. Delete. It's my social feed. It's gone. Never happened. Who cares?
I think it's great.
Like, we're talking about IT controversial, not like real controversial, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think it's great, and to be able to, I suppose it's the blend of passion plus the content that you want to get out there, and obviously companies are wanting to create awareness, but it's getting that personal element. I mean, there was one person that I met who was a passionate beekeeper working for a technology company. So he wrote a blog on why the technology is like bees and beekeeping, and it was just a fascinating story. But he was very passionate about that, and it was only interesting because he poured all of his energy into it. But it wasn't interesting in itself. As you said, the IT industry is not that interesting sometimes with all of the products. So so I think that's a really great message that you've given everyone.
Yeah, and the final thing I'll say is that at the end of the day, remember who pays your bills. Remember where your paycheck comes from. And so even though I have been like pretty outspoken and I'm my own person and I'm passionate about everything, I am an employee of VMware, a $10 billion, 30,000 person company. We are owned by Dell. That's the world I live in, right? And so I have to recognize that like there are certain things that I can say and that I can't say. And I don't want to be the person who like burns my own house down because I'm like, no, that's bull, like it's just at the end of the day. Also, remember, you can be passionate, but you also have to know like,
there's a line.
If I was independent, I would tweet this.
Yeah.
Text message that to your friend. Don't DM that on Twitter. That's too easy to mess up and accidentally post that. Just text that to your friend and be like, hey, if I was BrianMadden.com, I would write this. Ha ha ha. Be done. So at the end of the day, you can be passionate. Just like remember where your paycheck comes from.
Yeah, love that. There's a line. I was going to say, Brian, because we are up on time now, but I was going to say, where can we find you? But I think we know where we're going to find you. First, we could just search for you in Google. But where are you on Twitter and LinkedIn, I guess?
Yeah, Brian Madden. I'm at Brian Madden on Twitter. And LinkedIn is like /in/B Madden. So Brian Madden, I have a picture of it's me and a puppet on my LinkedIn profile, my Twitter profile.
I was going to ask you about that. Are you a ventriloquist or something?
It was a puppet version of myself. We did this show years ago. It was just like a video show, and it was a weekly show, like it was a long time ago. But April Fool's Day, one of the episodes was on, so we did the whole show with puppets, and so we were like down like that.
Amazing.
But we got the puppets to look like ourselves. So
I'm gonna have another look again now. Right.
Yeah, and it like at the time I had like earrings, and the puppet had the same earrings and the same shirt, and I had like different colored hair and stuff. So, yeah, my co-host, everyone, we did. It was a puppet version, and that was, I mean, there's me and a puppet and pinball machines in both my LinkedIn and my Twitter profiles. My tagline is unfettered by formal education or training, which I got from the show Polling. British comedy. That's a line that from that show. So you can still be fun and funny and out there and have wackadoo pictures while also being like respectful and exciting, but also still corporate. That is the line. Bottom line, though, we can live in our basement and do all this from home without having to travel anywhere. So it's pretty cool.
It is cool.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, for coming on. It's been an absolute privilege to speak to you. And I don't know how you blend so much passion, energy, and being unfettered and get away with it and be paid a good paycheck by a massive company. So you've obviously nailed that balance perfectly. So thank you so much. And for any of our viewers, if you want to see any of these interviews and episodes, then they're on analytica.com and tribalimpact.com on the resources section. So thank you very much, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Brian. Brilliant. Loved it. Thank you.
Yep.
Take care.
Tim, all you watching, thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.